Agaran stuff. Money. Redo. Part 2. Rework. Money. And I've decided to divide my ramblings about money into various sections, and I'm reworking my first one. So the first one, everybody knows about money. I mean, what everybody knows about money is spending it. Only do we really know what you're spending money on? Hmm? Yeah, of course you do. But do you? And the point is, on this particular portion of money, is all about spending. I'm not going to talk about income because you know where that's coming from. Your work, pension, Social Security, whatever form of income you have, movie royalties, whatever you got. But spending, it's really helpful, handy, necessary that you get a handle on what you're spending and when. And most people don't know that. I've been in a situation where it happens that there's a change of status or life for somebody. For example, a spouse dies who's been handling all the money, which is typical in a family. One person pays all the bills, the other significant other may not know anything about it. Certainly the children do not know what various expenses are and what are all the expenses. So I run into a situation where someone like lost a spouse or they got divorced or whatever. They hadn't been paying any bills. They don't know what the amount is, and they have no idea if they have enough money to cover the mandatory billing. So I've gotten in and helped with people like that. And the first thing I ask is, well, what do you spend money on? And I start off usually, okay, you got utilities. Even if you live in an apartment, you probably are paying utilities, but you got apartment rent. So let's start off with the basic stuff. You've got shelter of some kind, a house mortgage. You got electricity, water, natural gas. You've got maybe HO fees. You maybe have trash pickup fees. You may have house insurance or renter's insurance. You have home repairs, appliance replacement, upgrades, home maintenance of various kinds. Maybe you pay people to come in and do your yard, anything and everything related to shelter. Okay, you got that as an item, and you need to write down all those items so you can start uh, adding up what you're spending on those mandatory sort of spending items. And what I'm talking about here is mandatory items, things you absolutely must pay. So beyond all of that, of course, you have if income taxes, if you have to pay quarterly estimated or you pay, whatever, you got to include that in your list if you start writing them down, or use a spreadsheet, which I'll show you in a few minutes, that I have used over the years, or a variation of the sheet I've used over the years. But you need to write this stuff down. What do you spend money on? And obviously, besides shelter, you have food. You got to get some sort of estimate of what you're spending on food. Just groceries. Let's just talk about that because that's a mandatory sort of spending. It's not going out to dinner because I want to term that discretionary spending. You absolutely don't have to unless you eat all your meals out and you don't cook anything at home, and then you got to come up with a number that represents. Okay, shelter, food. Then you got your automobile, like I said, car payment. Maybe you got a car payment. You got gasoline you got to buy. There's a car maintenance you have to do, oil changes, car repairs of one kind or another. Um, you got food, shelter, cars. Of course, you need clothes. you got to buy clothes, especially if you're working someplace. You got to buy clothes. Clothes wear out. They go out of style or fashion. So you have to put some amount of money in there. You're going to spend money on clothes. Anything and everything that you're going to spend money on, you need to write down in some sort of manner or create a spreadsheet of some sort of manner that lists on the left-hand column all of your spending. So I've just mentioned a few of the typical things that people spend money on. There's lots and lots and lots and lots. But let's keep it at this point just to mandatory things you must absolutely pay. If you don't pay your water bill, they turn your water off. If you don't pay your natural gas bill, they turn your natural gas bill off. If you don't pay your mortgage long enough, they're going to repossess your house. If you don't make your car payment, they repossess your car. Things that have actions associated with them if you don't pay them. Mandatory. Those are mandatory spending items. And you can have a lot of them. But you need to know what they are. You sort of know it in your head because you pay them monthly, either electronically or by check or by cash or however you do it. But write them down because I doubt you know how much you're spending per year for electricity or natural gas or on food or your insurances. I doubt you know what the total is. Maybe you do, but I doubt you do. Okay, you get that list put together. You write it down in a book. And then you got to maintain it. Each month from January through December, you're going to write down what that actual expense was. And like all your utilities can vary from month to month. You know, lots of things vary from month to month. If you're in the services industry and you rely on tips, your income is going to vary month to month. And you need to keep track of your income each month. That's really important. If we're talking about spending each month, you also need to know how much money is coming in or what you expect to come in every month. Because you can then plan for it. You know you have these expenses, you can do some planning for it. And planning, in my terms, is limit your discretionary spending. Okay, so we're going to create this list. We're going to put all your spending items, whatever they are, and I can't think of every one for you. When I was helping a lady who had gotten divorced and she was doing this for the first time, we had everything I could think of, utilities and real estate taxes and personal property taxes. There's a whole category for taxes. Everybody pays personal property tax if you have any, or a real estate tax or some other kind of tax. I don't know, a fee to have a dog. They have taxes for everything. Anyway, I asked her all these things and I had it down. I said, well, is there anything else to spend money on? I said, no, not really. I said, well, you ever get a haircut? Yeah, I go to the hairdresser every month. Well, what's that cost? $150. Okay. I get my nails done every 2 weeks. How much that cost? $75. Oh, okay. Well, we need to put that in there. That is spending. Okay. So we finally got this long list, and we knew what her income was going to be off of alimony. And when you look down through there, she was going to run a deficit. She wasn't going to be able to make it for a whole year with the alimony she was getting in, with the expenses that she had defined to me for that whole year. This is where people get into trouble and they start using credit cards or borrowing to just get by. I'll talk about that in another portion, but what I'm talking about right now is just getting a handle on your total monthly and annual expenses. What are the mandatories you must pay? Once you have that down, based on your income, if you have any money left over each month, then I would consider that discretionary spending or savings. That money can either go into a savings account or you can spend it. Now, what happens with most people is they go along and they're paying all their mandatories and they're working every day, and it gets boring. You don't think about getting ahead anywhere, and all of a sudden they see a new TV and their old TV is crappy. They need a new TV. There's not enough money in the bank, so they borrow money, and then that's a new item to be added to your expense list is debt service or paying off that credit card. And that's one of the things you need to include in your list if you have credit card or credit cards or any kind of other debt, like I said, automobile loans. Anyway, when we looked at it, she was running in a hole based on all the money she was going to get in, and so we had to look at it and say, well, what things can we eliminate? And it all fell into that discretionary category. Well, I really need my hair done every month. Well, how about every other month? Nails every 2 weeks. How about every month? You can cut out some, maybe a little bit here, maybe a little bit there to make it fit, to make it work. So you have enough money to cover all the mandatories without borrowing any money on your credit card. And that is a bad habit to get into. And now if you're in a situation where you're fixed income and your expenses are exceeding your income, there are things you can do and you need to do. You need to sort conservation efforts on all your utilities. I always do that. I super insulate my house. It's a one-time charge. I have to include it in the expenses for home repairs. But after that, it's a monthly payback because my electricity is less, the water heater is less. It pays me back over time, and energy prices will continue to rise, so I get additional benefits in lower utility costs by insulating and sealing all the holes in the house. There are things you can do. On car insurance, you can look at your policy. Maybe you're paying a whole lot for it because when you bought it, you had a brand new car and you wanted to cover it for both directions. If you screwed it up, they would pay for it. But the car is now 5 years old and you don't need that to be done. You can reduce some coverage on your insurance policy to reduce the premium that you pay. Same way on any other kind of insurance, like your home insurance. If you look at it, you might have this amount of coverage and I can reduce this coverage some and that'll save me some money here. There are things you can do. You got to get creative. Certainly with utilities, you can just stop turning the heat up to 79 every day. You can lower the temperature in the winter. You can increase the temperature in the summer. You can open the windows up. You can do things. It may be a behavioral change, but you can do things to reduce the mandatory spending. The other part, discretionary spending, that may be harder to do, and I totally understand. You're grinding your nose to the wheel every day, and you're making things that you're getting by, but that gets boring, and you see a new hat in that store window, and you really need that hat, and you buy it. Okay. Or you treat yourself to go out to dinner. Dinners can cost $200 these days or $100, whatever it is. Discretionary spending, that's hard. I understand. Everybody has the same issue with that. But you got to be aware where it fits in with your income and your mandatory spending. If you don't have a lot of money left after and a lot of people are aware of this because the bank account only represents your paycheck. Some people, if they're lucky, the bank account can go up some. In fact, one of the things I used to do, and it was kind of a trick, if it was back in the old days, if I had to pay something, write a check for $15, I would record in the checkbook that I had spent $20. Or I had to pay $400 or something, I would report in the checkbook that I paid $500. So it appeared my balance was actually lower than it was, and that was the method I used to try to save some money. It was a trick, but it works. Fool yourself. Anyway, get a list of all your mandatory spendings, what your income is or you expect your income to be for every month of a calendar year, and you write down or put on a spreadsheet what your spending for each mandatory item is. And if you spend some discretionary, you go out to theaters, you go to movies, you host a party, you have Thanksgiving dinner, that goes in your food, but it goes up that month. You get the idea. You need to get control of your spending. You need to understand what you're spending on, how much it is monthly, how much it is annually. You need to know when certain big bills are coming in and prepare for them as you can. Okay, that's enough of all this. This is all having to do with spending, and everybody knows how to spend. We're really good at that. Some people are better than others, but we're all really good at spending. That's not I don't have to teach you how to spend. Everybody knows that. But now I'm going to show you a quick little section on a spreadsheet that I use to do that sort of tracking, and I also use it for some budgeting purposes for the year. You know, I look at it on a yearly basis, and it also helps me prepare for big expenditures I know are coming at various times of the year, like in July and then the end of the year, Christmas, and house taxes and so on. So this is part one on spending. I will do other parts of this, and probably the next part will be on credit cards, and then I'll look at other kinds of borrowing like home mortgages, car insurances, things like that, where there's paperwork involved. But the next thing will be on is credit cards and how people get into trouble with credit cards and what you should do or not do with credit cards. Or you can do like Ron does in the 11th commandment. Remember the 10 commandments? The 11th commandment is thou shalt not pay interest. The less interest you pay, the better off you'll be, because you're not gaining anything out of interest other than somebody, and they didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart, gave you some money to spend, and now you have to pay all that money back that you borrowed, plus a whole lot more money. You didn't get much out of it. I mean, your credit is valuable. Everybody needs credit. I understand that. That will all be related into credit cards and then later into financing where there's paperwork involved and you're going to sign stuff. Okay. This is Uncle Ron and stuff. This had to do with money. It has to do with spending. I'm now going to switch over and show you a spreadsheet. I might have a little bit at the end. Okay. Here is an example of what I've been trying to talk about. This is a spreadsheet that I have that I use, and basically what I want to show you is right in here, the first column, there are all of the expenses that I can think of, bills I have to pay, birthdays, Christmas. Here's what the mandatories are, taxes, insurance, water, electricity, cable company, blah, blah, blah. Then I have other thing. Here's food down here estimated, and house repairs. So that's my column over here of what my expected expenditures will be for I plan for the whole year. So you need to write all these things down that you spend money on, and you don't see any category here for theater or entertainment, clothes, that sort of stuff. I got home repairs in there for appliances and other stuff. But then what I do is you'll see up here at the top, I have the months. It's January through December. So as I spend something, for example, here's the anniversary of my daughter's wedding, and the anniversary is in April, so there is a recording of what I put out, wrote a check in that month. Down here for The mandatories, I'm not showing anything entered here. This is very old. I was just using an example. But this is sort of the idea. List all of your expenditures and then have months so you can put in what you spend. And what's really of value is at the end of like January, I can total what the total expenditures were and have an idea. And in fact, I use this particular spreadsheet. You might have noticed I have a column saying estimated actual and what's left. And this is basically at the beginning of the year. I say, okay, I'm going to give my daughter wedding anniversary $200. So I estimate that. I put that in this column. The first column is estimated of what I'm going to be paying out. And here was HOEs, house taxes. You see I put in what I think are the estimated amounts of those things, and you'd be surprised. Natural gas, $2,400 for a year. Okay. So I put in what I thought would be estimated, and then what happens when I make a payment like HOA fees, hopefully this will work correctly. I made a payment in March of HOA fees. You see what happened? That's the estimated amount. This is what I've actually paid so far, and this is what's left that can be used of my estimated amount for additional payments. Like, and you see how it changes. 24 is what I've estimated. I've now spent 998. This is what I got left that I budgeted for. And so this spreadsheet not only is a way of capturing all my expenditures, but also a budgeting spreadsheet. I create in the estimated column the budget for the year, what I'm going to spend on various things, and then the actual is the summation of all the months along this way, and whatever is left, sometimes the utility bills is not what I thought it was going to be for one reason or another. It's warmer than it should be, or it's colder than it should be, and that can vary, and I have to go back and change my estimate. And at the end of the year, when I take a look at everything, then I have a good estimate of what to use for my estimate next year for water, electricity, and natural gas. I usually take what I spent in the prior year and add 2 or 3 or 4% inflation factor to it and then put it in the new estimate. But this is the idea. Write it down. What did you spend on what sort of items? You can see that I have lumped things together. The mandatory, you could call it utilities if you want, but you can have various categories. I had up here anniversaries and birthdays. I have Christmas. I have doctors and dentists. You could have a separate medications if you want, what that is. Food, I have house repair. Here's beach. This is a vacation. And I estimated that for what the cost would be for a week at the beach. And I don't show any expenditure because I didn't do any. Things changed. Okay, house repairs. I'm not showing any on this particular spreadsheet. That could be anything from appliance repair to I put a new set of steps in and bought wood for it. Okay, that's all I have on this. I hope you get the idea, and I'll make a short end to what I've already had. Okay, Uncle Ron's stuff, and I showed you a spreadsheet that I used to keep track of all my expenses, mandatory and discretionary. And I showed you that I have months, January through December listed there, and I keep track of all that. I used to do it religiously. I don't do it so much anymore. Religiously meaning with emphasis. I made sure I tracked everything. I tried to do as much forecasting of what my future expenses would be as I could, and it helped me get a handle on where I need to cut back on spending and do it. Get some kind of handle on your spending so you can avoid borrowing money on credit cards. That's the real focus here. Do not spend more than you make. Don't do that. It's, I know you can't buy a car with cash. You got to borrow to do that. I understand that the same way with a house. But on credit cards, they're often used just simply for discretionary spending. That new, I need this. It's not like, well, I got to replace my dishwasher and I don't have the money, so I got to borrow it on credit card. I understand that it's different. But there's other things like, well, we need a vacation. And okay, 2 day vacation or a week. There's a big difference in how much you have to borrow for a 2 day vacation versus a week vacation. Okay, that's all I got to say about this Uncle Ron and stuff. This had to do with money, and this is part one having to do with spending. Today is the 1st of November in 2023.